Thank you much, everybody. It's an interesting topic for a biometric screening company to deliver, but in fact, screenings are not a product and health fairs don't work, so it really wasn't that tongue-in-cheek. But before I even get started, I kind of want to know who's in the room so I know who I'm going to offend. How many total population health management vendors or companies do we have? Okay, not many. Two or three? Okay, how many people who might purchase or use total population health management solutions? All right, that looks like the majority so far. And then how many healthcare providers do we have in the room? All right, that's good because I'm actually going to end a little early and ask you a few questions because there's something going on out there around your patients that I'm interested in understanding how it impacts your practice and how you handle them. So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit later. So while we are the largest biometric screening company in the country, it's interesting to me that we have gone about as an industry selling biometric screenings as a product. And they're not a product. And we have examples of other industries who kind of understand this. I mean, what did 3M make? They made adhesives, right? They made film. They didn't start out making Post-it notes. They made things that stuck together that you could put data on. And then they said, hey, you know what? We can make a Post-it note out of this. You know, they don't make the things you buy. They make the things you buy better. I think is that BASF? Who says that? You know, another example of that, Intel. How many of you have a need to go out and buy an Intel microchip? What would you do with it if you bought it? What would you do with the 3M adhesive if you bought it the way it comes off the line? You wouldn't have a use for it. But yet in this industry that we're all a part of, we sell biometric screenings or health fairs as a standalone product. And the question I want to ask the group is, what do we use them for? What is their benefit on their own? Later we're going to talk about what is their ROI. And I'm going to make the argument that biometric screening isn't a product. It's not a standalone event. It's the beginning of a health engagement process and a total health population management program. And that only when viewed in that lens does the thing take on value. Does the adhesive become a Post-it? Does the Intel chip become a computer? And I'm in a track called data, right, Fred? Right. So we're going to focus a little bit on data. And the data that you can gather from these types of activities when they're not done as a product, as a standalone event. So I guess the thesis here is that screenings are not a product. They're part of a health management process. And that when you position them alone as a standalone product, you're really losing the benefit in three areas. You're losing the benefit of risk identification that a biometric screening can provide. You're losing an opportunity for engagement. And you're missing out on profitability for those offering them. And more importantly, ROI for those organizations using them. So the argument here is that it's only when it's part of a larger program can you unlock the value of this data and make it worthwhile. So we're going to talk about three areas. I'm going to rename the first due to the name of the track. We'll call the first one data. Then we're going to talk about engagement. And then finally, we're going to talk about ROI. So this slide, you know, we entered this space 3 years ago. And I think I probably created this slide 3 years ago. And it's a view of our industry. Because where did we start, right? We started with PBM. And then PBM became DM. And then DM has become total population health management, thank goodness. And we've all moved left. We've said, yeah, it's great to manage the costs at the right end. But if we're going to bend the curve, if we're going to change trend, we obviously need to serve a total population. And that's a good thing. And I think we're all catching on to the importance of that. But as what were DM companies moved left, what did they do? They said, well, we got to have something for those well people, for those people at risk. So they started offering biometric screenings. We're going to go on site, and we're going to do a screening event, and we're going to call it a health fair. And now we have a wellness program. And then at the same time, wellness companies started popping up. And I bet if I went outside, I could throw a rock and hit at least 3 organizations that market biometric screenings as a product. And then all of a sudden we were filling the gap and we're now total population health. But we know that that's not the case. But there is a grain of truth in there. And the grain of truth is that as you move left, you need new forms and sources of data. How much data, how much claims data is there on an undiagnosed diabetic? When we were looking at this EMR system, which was, awesome, how much data is there on that patient who's never seen the doctor? It doesn't exist. So how can we claim to do total population health management if we only have data on the piece of the population that is already seeking or receiving care? How do you change risk related to someone who doesn't know they're at risk? We have 57 million pre-diabetics in this country, 6 million undiagnosed diabetics. We have very, very little information on these people. So biometric screenings are important in gathering the data on the people at the left. However, the way we're selling them as a product puts the data in silos. And we all might want to say that this isn't the case in our organization, but in almost every organization this is still the case. You've got claims data in one place, you've got HR data and HRA data in another place, and if you have screening data, it's somewhere else. We work on behalf of very, very large organizations who are still working through this silo. How many of you can honestly say that the data that you might have on a certain participant in all 3 of these areas is in one place and can be made actionable by the person trying to take action upon it? I have 1 hand. Anybody else really think they can do it? 2? That's good. That's best in class. Because if you're going to take a look at a person who maybe has a risk of heck, this person is diabetic. They have a 7.5 A1C. This is a diabetic. But if you have the screening data here and an HR piece of data over here that tells you that, where they just told you they're on the Atkins diet, and claims data somewhere else, it's really hard to act on that. And I don't care if that's the physician. I don't care if that's the nurse coach. I don't care if that's the on-site health coach. This data needs to be in one place. And when we sell a screening as a product, it tends to end up in that silo. So we've got to get it all together. And there's lots of challenges in getting all of this data all in one place. This is one of the challenges. This is our industry today. There are this many layers involved in the purchase and sale of a total population health management program. And look at what's absent on this list. Anything outside of the delivery chain of getting the data. There's not a physician on this list. There's not anyone outside of that vertical delivery of the data. And this is challenged because a biometric screening or an HRA can be initiated anywhere along this list. There are employers who buy these services directly, which makes integration with any data really, really difficult. There are health management companies that provide it with a benefit consultant, without a benefit consultant. It makes me think about transitions in care. We've got transitions in data here. Just as gaps exist when someone goes from the hospital to the nursing home, gaps exist depending on where your data is being collected. And when we think about data collection in product silos, I think this problem is exacerbated.